For those of you who don't know, my name is Jennifer Harris, and I have the good fortune of being the president of the America's Hometown Laureates. It's a nonprofit organization that is working to promote poetry, economic support for the cultural population that we have here in Plymouth. So this week's Poetry Festival, I can report that this is our fourth inaugural event this week. We were at the Black Lantern Tavern down in Red Brook on Tuesday. Tuesday was yesterday, right? As well as Uva Wine Bar. We filled the wine bar. I'm going to keep track of how important is wine when it comes to poetry. Shirley Square today, Melissa Kinney and I, we basically read some lovely poetry, and there were at least 3 fire trucks went by. So I'm going to work on a fire truck haiku, John. Or loud noise. And then tonight's event, and our final event will be tomorrow at Books and Sundry. We do have room if anyone wants to sign up again for tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. That would be great. I would like to start myself with just to recite a poem. Our group received a grant to bring a renowned poet to Plymouth. She has been set for Sunday, October 29th at the Spire. So I'm very excited. Her name is Maggie Smith. It's not the British actress. But Maggie wrote some poetry and had a blog during the COVID and ended up with more than 1 million followers. So she is a younger woman and has inspired many people. So currently she wrote a memoir and she's traveling around the country. She is on the New York Times bestseller list. So we will have her doing a book reading, a poetry reading with Stephen Delbos, the Plymouth laureate. And then they will do a conversation, and then we'll conclude with a book signing. So the tickets will be free, but you still have to secure them. That will be coming out from the Spire. So that's exciting. And so I thought I would read the poem that made her famous called Good Bones. Life is short, though I keep this from my children. Life is short, and I've shortened mine in 1,000 delicious, ill-advised ways. 1,000 deliciously ill-advised ways I'll keep from my children. The world is at least 50% terrible, and that's a conservative estimate, though I keep this from my children. For every bird, there is a stone thrown at a bird. For every loved child, a child broken, bagged, sunk in a lake. Life is short, and the world is at least half terrible. And for every kind stranger, there is one who would break you, though I keep this from my children. I'm trying to sell them the world. Any decent realtor walking you through a real shithole chirps on about good bones. This place could be beautiful, right? You could make this place beautiful. So, thank you, Maggie Smith. And with that being said, I would like to introduce Mark Walsh as our first poet.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hello, everyone. This is my third reading at this event, and this is the one I'm most excited about because I used to not only teach in this building when it was Quincy College of Plymouth, but I helped organize poetry open mics right in this room. We read right over there in that corner. It does not look anything like it looks right now, and I'm kind of freaked out about it because I know where I am, but I don't know where I am. But anyway, I'm so excited to be in this room reading poetry again. I have 2 poems I'd like to read tonight. Both are about bugs. And one's about... I was talking about, I was teaching British Lit this morning, and I was talking about Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and I was talking about how the Pearl poet, used alliterative verse and a bob and wheel, and sort of alliterative verse, Anglo-Saxon, profane, the bob and wheel, Christian and sacred. So here's kind of 2 poems that I think are kind of sacred and profane. First one has to deal with a dragonfly. This is called Summer Fences. Summer Fences. Admire dragonflies on summer fences, but only in the afternoon. A mythology born on quadruple wings sends pleasing thoughts through the ages. A girl with a dragonfly tattoo is a single soul dwelling in two bodies. On the fence, let the dragonfly be at peace. In peace, leave the dragonfly girl her soaring life. In New England, not all patriots are dragonflies. And then this next poem I was very fortunate to have published last month in a magazine out of Albuquerque, New Mexico called Abandoned Minds, and this is called Cockroach Poet. Cockroach Poet. These lines are not for the new romantics living in hovels while diving into dumpsters and writing their lines on stained napkins. These lines are not for the old beats coursing through back alleys at midnight while on the make for a documentary filmmaker. These lines are not for the libertine punks promoting their alienation while ordering DIY gear from online conglomerates. These lines are not for the influencing youth pointing luxurious fingers while duped into donating their lives to Russian hackers. These lines are not for the tone-deaf bloggers blissful in their slow-walk judgments, impervious to a retraction. These lines are not for the wholesome crowd nervously searching for the exit to 1950. These lines might be for the broad-stroke marketeers, earless and tribal-stacked, having us gargle tepid vinegar until we agree it's Peruvian coffee, who tout the purity of coal and the vitality of tobacco and devise a killing language more accurate than our actuaries' forecast, who bake bleach into pudding mix, uproot our senses until we believe clear-cutting the Amazon creates more lives than it saves jobs. These lines are not for the unholy senators cashing dense checks while praising their lack of action. These lines are not for the raging boys combusting at will while silently weeping for the warmth of their mother's shoulders. These lines are not for the mad ecologist starving on local fruit while welcoming the silence that greets them in the morning. These lines are not for the grim scientists quantifying their data while calmly drafting their children's last will and testament. These lines are for the insects with nuclear armor, with peripheral vision wide enough to know compromise, who, in their own time, will evolve a civilization from our ruins, create strange music and new logic and an economics that forecasts in 5 dimensions, who, while applying tentacled observations to rusted steel and busted concrete, follow broken lines skyward and ask, even now, such beauty. I wonder what happened. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And now I'd like to bring up to the stage Jessica Tebow.
Hello. This is my first time reading in Plymouth. I moved here in 2020, so I'm a little nervous. I'm going to share a poem that was first published in an online magazine. I wanted to read this one first. My mother had passed away this past September, and it was published on her birthday, so I figured I would read this one first. It's called Eroded Love. Ignorance to her selfishness threw her away, breaking a code that settled in for a decade. Grasping for a line, a thirst excused from her denial, fled by foot away from the fluorescent light. A bang of an aluminum door was the last thing heard from a life before. Passion and trouble laid in the wake of sin that started way too late. Her presence embodied a likeness of a goddess, cult status of willing followers, all making her pretty like undying flowers. Breathing in self-love and hate, a novel of life encased with recycled air, struggling to flow life back to reality. This next one is, it doesn't have a title, but I wrote it while sitting on my beach, actually just the other evening. Running in dresses and flimsy footwear, she created bridges. With passion and ethereal visions, her own siren song kept her one step ahead. She led the pack, yet at night she left the heat to be out in the cold. Like her heart, she had let it seep. And once she realized it was too late. Death of things laid out like a garden of poison with ripped up roots. She scurried over rocks in dresses and flimsy footwear. Never conventional, but full of good. Intentions of strength fell too short on scared giants, looping nooses and hauling up stones. Wild hearts escape and jump in dresses and flimsy footwear. This one is called Dark Matter. The dark autumn sky wrapped around like a little black dress, stars connecting and ribboning starlets around the wrists and throat. Bounding and etching the physical to the cosmic realm, breathing in the galaxies, burning suns, making it darker outward and brighter within. Deep dark space with gasps of air that cause psychopathic laughter. Float now to the next chamber, a nebula that makes you feel wanted. This one I wrote after my mom died. I have lost both my parents in the past almost 3 years, and this one was about the anger that was building. This anger has no home. It's not welcomed in my heart, yet it perches on my shoulder, banging against my chest. This anger has no home as I close my eyes, ignoring the darkness, the loneliness. It's not welcomed in my bed, yet it slithers into my sheets. This anger has no home, humming to a merry tune, yet as I clear my throat, I begin to choke and then yell to the heavens. This anger has no home, yet I extend a hand, no home but a resting place, to feel in hopes to eventually heal. These two kind of connect to each other. I write a lot about planets and stars and moons and the sea, I have found as I'm going through my writing over the years. She sang as if she held the galaxy together with just one note, Saturn dancing in her eyes, Jupiter's secrets held between her lips. Many moons dancing overhead, creating halos of light. Mars made her a fighter, kicking red sand to the darkened heavens. And my last poem I'd like to read this evening is called Mr. Mars. In the vivid dream of you and I sat on a boulder and you embodied Mars. You let down a fractured red-lit rope, looping loosely around my neck. It seemed to kiss with strength before it slid to my side. Climbing higher, the darkness echoed explicit lovers' tones. The red rope bathing my hands in light that mirrored blood's burgundy red, pulling myself higher to my Mars. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jessica. I'm honored that you read here, and it doesn't seem like you missed a beat. So, welcome. Thank you. Our next reader is Miriam O'Neill.
I'm with Mark. It's nice to be back in this room. I grew up in Plymouth, so I remember when it was the library. And there was a second floor over there, and you could get your Nancy Drew right upstairs. And Cherry Ames, private duty nurse. She was hot. I was fortunate enough to participate in the Poet Laureate competition back in 2020, just before the world shut down. And we were each asked to, the finalists were each asked to write a poem about Plymouth, with a Plymouth theme. And some people wrote historical poems and pilgrim poems and Cordage Park poems, and I wrote about Woolworths. And I would like to reprise this poem because I think it's a lot of fun. It's called Plymouth. It's a true story, too. Plymouth, snapshot with birds. A man walks into Woolworth's on a day in spring. I say walks when I could say totters, his uncertain forward motion, like a man who's spent long months at sea. I'll say that year spring was slow in coming. Crocuses considered blooming, then snugged back in their beds of mulch or disappeared into the grass where voles and mice had hidden them last winter. I say Woolworths, which those of a certain age and years of residence will remember, once anchored a block of Main Street. My sisters and I sipped Cokes, a little flat, too sweet, the kind mixed out of tanks under the counter, then served in thick-ribbed glass with straws with accordion tips. From red vinyl-covered stools, we could see almost everything on offer. Crates of Rachel's Cream discount makeup in numbered shades of beige and ivory. Sagging bolts of polyester house dress materials along the wall next to racks of carded buttons and spools of thread. And down the center, pots and plastic that all reflected the fluorescent glare of lights, some winking due to loose connections, some droning loose connection tunes. And down back, the home of minor household tools, 3-in-1 screwdrivers, picture hooks, spatulas, serving spoons. To our left, the plate glass window, where beyond, Plymouth wandered west towards Puritans, north to Smith's, and east to Toby Hardware and the USPO. And south, invisible to customers at Woolworth's, the hulk of Burial Hill. And to our right, the favorite aisle, the rows of cages, tanks, and aquaria, home of hamsters, fish, and turtles along the wall, and above them, songbirds, canaries, parakeets, and doves in ones and pairs, white or brilliant yellow, green and china blue, their little curved beaks biting at the wires that caged them. Their noise, not a true singing, more a quiet screech, their little talons curled then uncurled on each perch, while we twirled on our seats in our school uniforms, catechisms stuffed in book bags, knee socks sagging, when the man walked into Woolworth's, or better said, he lurched. The weighted door closed quietly behind him. April's chill followed him in, and when he turned and tottered toward us, we turned our backs to face the fountain and listened to the whistle of his raincoat and the whistle of his raincoat as he passed, and his muttering. Then, commotion in the small pets aisle as one by one he flung the cages wide, and the birds, startled out of resignation, took their chance and bolted for the ductwork overhead, where they filled the air with chirps and whistles as their savior flapped his arms. Go free! Go free! The clerk, who kept an eye on kids who had no money, left his station, and the manager, hearing the noise, yanked open his office door to watch as songbirds swooped and pooped in flight and soared and chatted happily, and we stared dumbfounded at the audacity of the man who walked into Woolworth's and released its birds. Or should I say, he tottered? Or should I say, he lurched? Or should I say, he understood the impulse in each one of us to be free? So I'm just going to read one other poem, because that was a long poem, and it's a bird poem, too. I'm a bird sort of crazed person. This is a list poem you'll hear. It's called Little Consecrations, and it's in my book, The Half-Said Things. A plague of grackles, a clutter of starlings, a scold of blue jays, a chirm of finches, any kind, a rafter of turkeys, a ubiquity of sparrows, an echo of mockingbirds. Isn't that cool? An echo of mockingbirds. A drum of goldfinches, a bobbin of robins, a hover of hummingbirds, a charm of housefinches, a chime of wrens, a dissimulation of chickadees, a blessing, a hermitage, a beatitude of bluebirds, a sky. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. I think you give the most dramatic of all the readings. So, and your outfit was perfect for the birds. So, you're the whole package in my mind. Thank you. So now we have Chris Toto Zaremba.
I'm going to start with a plug for my book because I never do this. So I'm the author of a children's Christmas book called Angel of the Harbor. And I'm going to start with Blessed are the creative people. Blessed are the creative people. The universe has entrusted them with talents of vision, words, and sounds. They store the imagination, touch souls, entertain, and fill the world with positive vibrations. This one is for my daughter-in-law who used to work at a private special needs school. It's called Bite Me. Becca goes to work each day. She stores her purse. She fills her pockets with candy for the boys and girls. She slips on Kevlar sleeves, fastens her hair with a bungee, and walks through into her classroom. If they are good boys and girls, they'll get a candy reward. Please don't bite her. Day ends. Her hair comes down. She tends to today's wounds, takes her purse, and drives home. There she's greeted by her loving man. If he's a good boy, he might get a candy snack. Sometimes she lets him bite her. So this one I read to my sons when I first wrote it years ago, and they didn't get the last line, but I'm looking out at you folks, and I think this is the right age group. It's called Halfway. Standing on the stairs that connects my personal being with my public persona, halfway between a carefree 18-year-old hippie chick and a responsible mother-in-law wondering who the woman in the mirror is because it's sure not the person I see in my mind's eye. Standing on the stairs viewing the stuff filling the bookcases hanging from the walls, the stuff life had collected along the way, halfway between a career woman and a mom who could not be home with milk and cookies for the boys, but they grew up anyway and never questioned their lifestyle. Standing on the stairs wondering who I really was and if I was going up or down the stairs, and if it mattered anyway. Halfway between a wife and a widow wondering if he really was gone or if it was a big joke on me. Standing on the stairs, having an out-of-body experience, looking at a woman standing on the stairs, halfway between this life and the other side, wondering, what's it all about, Alfie? This is called change. You can change what you say, but not what you said, for words said can never be taken back. Choose your words carefully. Life can change in the blink of an eye, so always hug your loved ones before they leave, for a goodbye not acknowledged is one thing you will never have a chance to change. This is for my grandsons. Twinkle, twinkle. Standing at the seawall, I watched the waves rock the ocean under the watchful eyes of the moon and the twinkle, twinkle of little stars. Standing in my living room, I gently rocked my grandsons to sleep under their watchful eyes, giving into my singing, Twinkle, twinkle, little star. This is for my partner. We love to do puzzles. We work on a puzzle on the table, starting at the edges to give it form, define the size, working to finish it to see our accomplishment. I consider us a puzzle, but I don't want defined edges. Let's be free form, no boundaries, a start, no finish. Celebrate each piece as it fits. Enjoy each section as the big picture reveals itself. Wait, the pieces will fall into their places. And this one, I was thinking about the North and South River Association because they put up these notifications every now and then that everybody should take heed if you're ever in a canoe or a kayak to put your name, telephone number into your boat. It's called Blessed Canoe. He blessed each new canoe to the four winds. He rubbed river mud upon the floor. He asked the universe to protect it and always bring it home to shore. He left to paddle the river north. He wasn't going far, following currents by day and by night, following a star. The universe returned the canoe back home, following its own sad plan, you see. That blessing was only meant for the boat. It was never meant for the man.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate that. And welcome to your partner. I bet you have fun making puzzles. So our next reader is Sarah Grady.
I appreciate the shout out to the North and South Rivers watershed because that's where I work. This is my second time doing Plymouth reading. My first three poems I wrote in the months right after my mother passed away in summer of 2020. This is Forest Philosophy. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? So goes the old philosophical question, trotted out as a simplification of what it means to observe. The truth? They crash down, fall hard and heavy, and there's collateral damage. Other trees, shrubs, the ground itself, where roots tear skyward. Does the tree think, I cannot fall because I will crush the others? My sister always said, big tree fall hard, and it's true. But a tree can lean. It can rest its trunk and limbs against another, more stable, less uprooted. And in that time, roots surfaced and askew, but still drawing from the earth, it can heal and regrow without the sound of splintering and destruction. Red maple. We all anticipated October. It was important to know what leaves would fall on her patch of land, on our patch of land. The cemetery man said, that's a Norway maple. It will just turn yellow and brown. And it did. But at the foot of the grave, a sole red maple blazes alone, in the company of green-leaved white pine, hickory, and black cherry. I have seen hundreds. It's a wetland pioneer, standing tall where it's too wet for others. And here, its scarlet and crimson will fly a distinguishing banner for many Octobers to come. The gifts. I believe that all your gifts and foibles were redistributed among us. We all became more generous and spent too much money on presents tucked away for the future, just in case. We all became better listeners and took on the burden of others' lives. We worked harder to keep things in order and became terrible at taking time for ourselves. We sent cards on minor occasions, put flowers in vases, called a friend just to say hello, danced in socks and old t-shirts across the kitchen floor, and laid down each day exhausted and joyful from so much giving. And now these two are, I guess, about possibility. Granite. You saw the single stone in the field and focused on it as a high point in a barren landscape. I lay and leaned upon just one towering outcropping of many, the boulders as abundant as I was. I called you out of the field and into the forest and down to the coast to marvel at this sculpture all around us. You gasped and whispered, "I did not know." Dropping to your knees, "Please let me stay." You had dreamed of long, silent quiescence, but here, with me, you have found the persistent spark of vibrant life, like the mosses and seedlings that grow from this unyielding granite. And this one is called Abandon Yourself to Joy. Why shouldn't we throw ourselves with reckless abandon into the mud and dirt and water, casting off our shoes and socks and not fearing consequence? Why not fall into the arms of a lover and press against old trees, taking advantage of every furtive opportunity? Why can't we chase the sunset in bare feet down dirt roads and kiss with toes on the yellow line when we hit the pavement? The neighbors and the retired principal and the lady at the post office wish they could be this free and this happy.
Thank you, Sarah. I had neglected to remind everyone that you were a student laureate in Harvard in your youth. I think it is carried on, so thank you. And our next poet is John Holgerson.
Thank you, Jennifer. Like Miriam and Mark, this room has some memories for me as well. But before I forget, once again, just as I did at the Black Lantern and at the wine bar yesterday, I do want to commend the Hometown Poet Laureates, Jennifer in particular, for organizing this event. And also all of the venues that have lent their space and time to support it. This room has some memories for me as well. There used to be an event held for a number of years here called Visual Inverse. And Visual Inverse was an event where 24 poets were invited to come into the gallery when the art gallery was having an exhibit, select a painting, a photograph, a drawing, to write a poem about. And then a month or two later, there would be a reading, and the portraits or whatever you had selected to write a poem about would be on a slide on a screen behind you or to your side as you read the poem. I was privileged on more than one occasion to be one of those 24 poets. And what I want to do tonight is read a poem that I read at the Visual Inverse in 2016. It is part of my latest collection of poetry called Convictions of the Heart. And I don't have a slide or a screen to show it on, but I do have a copy that I can hold up, hopefully, so you all can see it while I read the poem. I would say this about this particular painting. When I came on the selection day, I walked around the gallery, must have been 25 times, looking for just the right portrait. And this portrait was on that back wall. Go over to the right a little. And I would come back to it time and time and time again, until finally, because I'm not the brightest bulb in the room, I realized that my own personal poetry muse was telling me, "You idiot, this is the portrait that you should select." So I did select it. It's called Upon Seeing the Portrait of a Young Woman. Who are you to hold me here with an over-the-shoulder glance in this stylish tabernacle of sketched and painted visions where art asks poetry to dance? When your winter comes and the crows of time tramp around the corners of your eyes, this face will be the same, youth's presumed immortality affirmed and age itself disguised. And when the snow is deep and you are warm before the fire, wrapped by love poems in some old book, remember the hearts of gold a silent beauty stole with a single mesmeric look. I was not beguiled by how brush, oil, and canvas wed, till I saw your face by chance. Who are you to hold me here with this over-the-shoulder glance? I'm only reading 2 poems tonight, and the second poem comes from my first book, which was published in 2012, called Broken Borders. And I'm holding up the cover primarily because it's a portion of a painting of Don Quixote that I got permission to put on the cover of the book. And the reason I wanted to show it to you is because the poem I'm going to read is about Don Quixote. Because we all know Don Quixote is that old guy who was riding a swayback horse, but he knew it was really an Arabian stallion. He knew that the laborer that worked for him, Sancho Panza, was really his squire because he was a knight errant. He knew that the windmills were really giants. He knew that the town's local prostitute was really Dulcinea, a princess that needed to be rescued. And no matter how often Sancho Panza tried to convince Don Quixote that these were all illusions, they weren't true, this wasn't reality, Don Quixote would not listen. He would not give up what he believed to be his noble pursuit of beauty and the truth and right and fairness. Here's a spoiler alert for those of you who haven't read the novel. At the end of the novel, on his deathbed, Don Quixote suddenly sits up because he realizes that his whole life has been based on a delusion and a hallucination, and it's not real. So he cries out and he dies. But I've often thought, what about an alternative ending? How about if he actually listened to Sancho Panza on one of those occasions? And he realized that, I think the guy's got a point. That really is a windmill. But what would his reaction have been? So this is a poem which is really a soliloquy said by Don Quixote, who has come to the realization that the life that he thought he was living, the truth he thought he was fighting for, was really not real. I have to ask you to stretch your imaginations a little bit. As I said, it is a soliloquy. I need you to imagine me as an old man with white hair and a wrinkled face. So I need you to, I am confident that all of you here can achieve that goal. The poem is called Don Quixote, After Therapy. I'm broken and I'm bitter by the heart's forced retreat, the fundamental loss incurred with age love's defeat. I knelt whenever beauty passed, laid down my heavy lance, arose a better man each time, encouraged by her glance. I fought and died for beauty, not knowing I was unarmed. She never promised anything, never said I'd go unharmed. I'm bitter and I'm broken by age love's defeat, the fundamental loss incurred with the heart's forced retreat. I don't recognize that image in the hallway mirror, the gray and wrinkled flesh inside this phony armor. The glacial cold of loneliness freezes me on crowded streets, where deformed and crippled hearts still pause, yet never care to meet. They've taken down the road signs that mark the narrow ways I wandered for a lifetime within this twisted maze. I'm broken and I'm bitter by the heart's forced retreat, the fundamental loss incurred with aged love's defeat. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I feel like we've been on our own quest the last few days, so thank you for sharing. And next, I would like to introduce actually a new neighbor of mine. Her name is Marilyn Gove. Please come up.
I hate when the mic is taller than me. Each year, the podium gets taller, too, and I get smaller. Can you hear me? Yes. Good. I have one poem here tonight. It's a little longer, sort of in the middle, like medium, I would say. And it's my first time reading during the festival, maybe my third time, while I'm relatively new here in Plymouth. And there's some drama in it, so I might be a runner-up to Miriam in terms of performance tonight. We'll see. We'll see. See if I can give her a run for her money, huh? Will you borrow my kimono? Next time, please. It's quite chic. So this actually is a poem for my cousin David Prost. He was a war veteran, and I needed to write it. I wanted to write it because I wanted to make him visible to the world. It's a prose poem. It's divided into 4 sections, and it has 4 different voices. I think the important thing about this poem is that I grew up in a Jewish home, and so I put together a brief translation of some of the Yiddish words that appear in the poem, and I would like to just briefly talk about them so you understand their meaning as we actually move through the poem. The first word, and you might know some of these, the first word is kibbutz, which basically means to stand around or to sit around and talk, have a lot of body movements. You see some of the performance coming in, Miriam? Schwitz is another great word. It means to sweat, to schwitz. Tallis basically is a prayer shawl, and when you go into a temple or a synagogue, you'll oftentimes see the men in these prayer shawls. A yarmulke is a skull cap worn during prayer, generally by the men. The women wear hats in conservative temples. Kaddish, a mourner's Kaddish, is a prayer that's basically said, it's respecting the dead, and also proclaims the greatness of God. And mishigas, which was used all the time in my home because there was so much mishigas, means to be mad, foolish, or crazy. Okay? So the title of this poem is At the Unveiling of a Jewish War Veteran. 1. The Unveiling. It is 100 degrees in the shade. Family gathers in shorts and sandals to pay their respects. No one wears black. A niece pulls up on a red Harley. Her entrance startles everyone. Women in sun hats move in circles and kibitz about the old days. Their foreheads bead with schwitz. Men walk the perimeter, arms folded behind their backs. The rabbi arrives wearing a tallis and yarmulke. We walk in single file to the sun-baked grave. 2. The veteran's sister. I loved my brother. He was such a hoot. Taught himself how to play piano, graduated college with an aeronautical engineering degree, became a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy, piloted planes. He loved the sky. Up there, he could bear his soul, dress it with wings. Then came Vietnam. The killing. His lifetime, holed up, in a psych ward. I wanted more for him. I miss him so much. In unison, the mourner's Kaddish begins. Yiskadal ve'yiskadash shemei rabbah. 3. The women kibitz about the veteran. I'm telling you, he was Hollywood handsome. Runner-up to Tony Curtis. A real looker in that uniform. Just gorgeous and such a mensch. So much potential he had. We talked once, maybe twice. Hard to remember. His whole life ahead of him. Marriage, children, a career. Did you ever hear him on the piano? A sound so beautiful it made you kvel. A boy like him, sensitive, thoughtful, nothing left but the mishigas. 4. The final entry from the Veterans Journal read by the niece. Thou shalt never drop napalm over villages of Viet Cong. Thou shalt never call those different from myself hurtful names. Thou shalt never put females and children in harm's way. Thou shalt never trust leaders who forsake their veterans. Thou shalt never follow any god into battle to kill others. Thou shalt never use firebombs to feign peace. Thou shalt never fly. Thou shalt never fly. Thank you.
So I will have to say that's a mitzvah that you just shared with us. So thank you. Thank you.
Tell me what a mitzvah is.
A blessing is that Yiddish? Anyhow, next. So Sheila Lynch Bentonen. Did I say it correctly?
Hello, I've noticed others, if you stand too close to this microphone, it whispers back at you. So I'm going to try to stay away. My name is Sheila Lynch Bentonen. I'm a member of the Duxbury Poetry Circle. I've never heard of the word tallis as a prayer shawl before, but I call this my poetry shawl because it hides all sorts of errors of a 60-year-old.
We all do.
Yeah. So last night at the wine bar, which was so much fun, I read funny things about friends that were there. And tonight, I thought I would take you through a year in my neighborhood with short poems. January. My dog wakes me up, stirring me to go outside. That little peak of orange light right before dawn, the morning after a great blizzard. The silver moon and sparkling stars, still visible with the blue-orange very beginning of day. Light snow, taller than my tall boots. The dog bounds with joy like a kangaroo. Then, 2 owls hoot, hoot, hoot to each other before full brilliant daylight begins. A brilliant blue flash set against the white fury. Blue jay in a blizzard. Magic. February, day after blizzard. Sun glistening on pendants of ice, hanging on the branches, rivaling the finest chandeliers. Snow frozen in peaceful white with blue shadows, belying the previous day of swirling drama and fury. March. The pond is white ice, cracking with a loud groan. The oaks and maples are snapping and whistling. The ducks and geese are shivering and sheltering. But the native eastern great white pine is throwing its evergreen arms up to reach the cold sky as if to say, "Bring it on, March." Dear March, you are forgiven. Love, June. April. April pretends she is married to spring, but she's still dating winter. May. Young lovers play and own the month of May. May is a prom queen, floozy pinks, diaphanous whites, air full of promise, warm and splendid. I want to dance. June. June, June, strawberries in a full moon. July. All the weary world is miles away on a perfect July day. Summer breeze, flip-flops in my hands, toes in the warm tide pool, full moon rising over the ocean's horizon, late evening light, dusk by the July sea. August. August, laying on a sandy beach, all my troubles out of reach. August magic time, when the deep orange fired daylilies are blooming, and you see that more are forthcoming, and the silk on the top of the corn is blonde and smooth, like it has been for thousands of August, and the air is heavy and warm, and people move slower and jump in cool waters wherever they are. When December seems like it could never happen again, you know you are in the midst of August magic time. September. September, the beginning of new beginnings. September, the marvelous maples, the bunches of birch, the burning bush, the willowy willow have started their leaf death autumn carnival, multicolored majesty, more vibrant than a New Orleans street funeral. Note to self, leave this world in a blaze of color with the music on. October. I will never tire of October's leaves on fire. November. Make the feast, stoke the fires. November is about to expire. November, my habitat. Languid, cold November Saturday morning, staying under the warm blankets. The dog lets me know it's time to go outside. Bundle, bundle, hat, sweater, coat, warm socks, etc. Frost on the garden, yellow russet and amber leaves crackle underfoot. The luscious summer green marsh grass has turned to thin, transparent straw. The red squirrel collects the precious acorns for the frozen forecast. The brant geese have arrived from the Arctic to winter on our coast. Soon the snowy owl will arrive. Hot tea swirls steaming mist, wood stove blazing, light slants strong, darkness descends early. Evening meals are warm and hearty. I am a happy citizen of late autumn here, a complete foreigner in the tropics. This is my habitat. December, the stars shine bright and Orion hunts on a clear December solstice night. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. And they say time flies, but you put us through a year pretty quickly, so thank you. Very evocative. And our final reader tonight is John Rogers.
So I read last night at the Uva wine bar, and but the poems here tonight made me think of a different kind of theme. To live life of futility with still passion and beauty and courage. So, all right, this first one's called Bombs. The voices of the bride and groom fill every hall and every room. Their joyful voices will continue while you only hear the bombs that miss you. Wait for love of your dreams, or accept love as it seems. You may do whatever you want to, but you will only hear the bombs that miss you. Cringe in fear of what is not yet. Pray to the angel of death to bend down and kiss you, but you will only hear the bombs that miss you. Time has destroyed all your clothes. There's nothing left to disclose. So what is there left for you to do when you only hear the bombs that miss you? There are only two questions to answer. What is the cure of your cancer? Death is in your blood and tissue as you only hear the bombs that miss you. There is but one true norm. Love life in all its form. Then life will belong to you as you only hear the bombs that miss you. And this other one is called Extinction, but it's really about any last member of the species or any last member of a nationality or of a nation, a culture. And yet they continue to live as best they can, right? You think of Job, you could think of the soldier. They have left me here to drift in this rock-edged rain pool wherein only toads bathe. Fish live in water but cannot know its scarcity. They cannot move from one putrid pool to one that's pure. I live with dry skin on dry land, searching for water where it can't be found. Across each plain and mountain crest, toward each vanishing mirage. Walking, I hear disturbing steps, walking across the crushing grass. My mate and child walk with me, although they are not here. I hear the calling thirst of each dry root, each crusted seed, each sheltered creature in their hole, even as the dogs dig them out. At last the rain begins to fall. It fills this low and rocky place. I cry out loud with grateful awe, not thinking of my dying race. My voice joins the myriad creatures who celebrate their lives with song. Immersed in color and dance, I breathe in the goodness of the earth. Yearning for just a word or smile, my song fades in the air, with no one here to share this joyous vernal pool. The climate is dry, and they have all died from whom we have learned. For us without birth, what goes to the earth cannot be returned. Do we have time for another? What do you think? Sure. This is The Rose. Oblique sun rays cast shadows on the ground. Spring's garden now is empty with despair, except for one midwinter rose being found. But why should beauty dwell in sadness there? She spites the world with meager stem and thorn. Her teardrops seep into her mother earth, who welcomes back the pain which she has borne. The mother knows the pain of giving birth. The poet's heart beats stronger at the sight. His soul transcends within her street perfume into a pleasured state where inner light dispels all shadows and surrounding gloom. As sorrow, pain, and all the blood that flows are resurrected in this blooming rose.
There's always one more poem, you know. So I want to thank all the poets tonight and the readers in the audience. Also a special shout out to PAC TV, our media sponsors. I think the crew has heard more poetry in the last days than they probably did when they were in high school. So bless their furry hearts. There's only one more to go. But I did want to wrap it up with one poem John and I had shared, and Miriam had brought, that William Butler Yeats, his birthday is coming up? On June 13th, and I had found one of my poetry collections of Yeats and brought that. So separately, John and I had each picked to read Politics, so I thought we would wrap that up tonight. How can I, that girl standing there, my attention fix on Roman or on Russian or on Spanish politics? Yet here's a traveled man that knows what he talks about. And there's a politician that has both read and thought, and maybe what they say is true of war and war's alarms, but oh, that I were young again and held her in my arms. Thank you all. So, please give yourself a hand. We have some refreshments, so go ahead and enjoy a little bit, and we'll see you tomorrow or the next time. Thank you all.